everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on episode 2 of Bloomin' to You. You know what? Sometimes I try to plan ahead and I plan out my week and I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to watch this night and this night. And sometimes I plan it just based on if it's like, if I'm reading a Don Mai set of chapters, I know that's going to take me a couple hours. But if I'm just watching like an episode that's 20 minutes, then I can kind of manage my time a little differently. But I had intentions to watch something else tonight, and then I really wanted to watch episode 2. So I was like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it and go into it, and we'll see what happens. But last episode was such an introduction. We got Yuu and Nanami, who are very different in how they approach things. Yuu is very reserved. She's very contemplative. She's like thinking about things and trying to figure things out and mull things over in her head. And Nanami seems so sure and direct as the senpai. She's like, I know what I want and I'm going to get it. And that seems interesting, but end of last episode, she's like, oh, I think I might be in love with you, Yuu. And Yuu's like, wait, what? And then Nanami's like, wait, never mind. You didn't hear anything. So we have Yuu, who's trying to figure out who she is, what she likes, why things aren't working out for her. She just dumped a guy that tried to ask her out, but she's only told Nanami. She hasn't told her friends yet. And Nanami, who's rejected everyone around her, has suddenly confessed to Yuu, but then kind of took it back when she realized, oh, wait, you might not be on the same level as me. Ugh. So we've got to go from there, but I'm really excited about the series. The animation's really good, and so far the pacing of the first episode was really nice. So episode 2 is always a weird episode to follow up on because you have like the hook of the first episode, and now it's like, now what do we do? So we have this festival getting planned, it seems, and then, or it's the elections, and Nanami is going to be running for class president, and she seems to be wanting Yuu to be on her campaign committee. So how festive. But yeah, I'm really, really excited. I hope you all are as well. I want to give a quick shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon. I'm super thankful of all the people on YouTube that support me. You all are amazing. Those of you that subscribe, that comment, that like the video. But I'm also really thankful for the patrons who not only help me to fund subscriptions for High Dive, which I'm watching this through, but also to help me get content and help me keep the channel up and going. So the philanthropy tier, they're on the highest tier on Patreon and they get a shout out in my videos. So I want to give a shout out to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, to Bryant Reed, to Danny Donmai, to Davarin, to Dana, to Danger Zone, to Damage 3245, to Destiny Marie, to Ichu, to Eric, to Fisho, to Ghostly Turnip, to Elfreya, to Lyndon, to Matthew Palfinier, to No Nickname, to Nameless Monster, to Murphew, to Nicholas, to Shimoyama, to Sunspots, to Trails, and Translucent Men. Thank you all so much for all of your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, let's not waste any more time, y'all. I'm ready to get down and see what we get with this episode. So we are going to start episode 2 of Bloomin' to You, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Well, things are indeed heating up. Damn! Okay, well, I meant to do a timer for this episode, and then I started it, and then about the time the OP hit, I was like, crud, I did not do a timer, but that's all right, so we'll just do a link to the reaction this week, and then next week we'll be back to the timer things and all that, and hopefully all goes well, fingers crossed, but I was just too excited, I guess, to get through this episode and do it. But yeah, wow, so what a complicated series so far. I'm really, really impressed that the series is treating these characters with really complex emotions, especially towards romance, because when she confessed in the first episode with Nanami, I was like, oh, is this just going to be like a yaoi where they just instantly start making out? We got that for 13 episodes? No, not at all. It's actually a lot more complicated than that, and I really appreciate it. But we should go through this episode in chronological order, and I'm going to walk through the episode with y'all and talk about each part as I see fit, because there were some things that stood out that I was like, oh, I want to talk about that and get there. I think one of the big takeaways from this opening scene with the two friends and Yuu is that it's kind of, you can't judge someone on their sexuality or about any stereotypes from a surface level. And it kind of breaks that down and deconstructs it right off the bat, because you have the one girl who plays basketball. Oh, what's her face? We'll get her name here in a little bit. But we have the one friend that plays basketball, and she has kind of a stereotypical, like, oh, she's the athletic girl and tough girl. And when I was in school, it was very small-minded. Like, a lot of small-minded people would be like, oh, well, if you're like a really athletic girl, then you're probably into other girls. And that's not a fair assumption at all. That's so narrow-minded and so like phobic, and it's just wrong. And she kind of defies that right off the bat, because later on we see her with a guy from the basketball team, and they kind of look like they're kind of chumming it up, and maybe they're not, maybe they're just friends, we don't know. But anyway, it kind of defies that. And then you have the other friend who likes things that aren't cute. She won't wear her ribbon to class, and they're like, you're gonna get in trouble. She's like, I don't like cute things. And she has like the little kind of like a buggy charm that's like kind of like so ugly. It is kind of cute though. It's like so ugly that's cute, but she kind of defies it as well. And then you have Yuu, who seems so like feminine and likes frills and like seems girly and all this. And if you were somebody that was kind of narrow-minded and small-minded, you'd probably instantly assume, oh, well, she automatically likes guys, right? But that's not how things are. And that's not how people are in real life. And you can't just assume someone's preferences or their sexuality or anything like that just based on what they look like. And I like that this show, without being preachy and without being like loud about it, it instantly sets that up in this episode from the start, right? Which I really, really appreciate about it. I really like that it does that. So anyway, I do like that poor Yuu is miserable, because they gotta do flyers and posters and stuff together. She is not like Mitsumi and Skip and Loafer, who's like gung-ho, ready to do things. She's like, this sounds like a lot. And honestly, I thought it was just gonna be Yuu and Sayaka doing it all, but they have a crew. They have Maki. They have like a team. It seems like a pretty well-oiled machine. But her big thing is that she has to give a speech at the student assembly, which, yeah, if you're not a public speaker and you're a first year, anytime like you're a first year in school, whether it's middle school or high school or whatever, that's a big, tall order, because you're just getting settled in. You're getting used to like your classmates. You're getting used to your classes. You want to make a good impression, and having to get up and give a speech in front of the assembly for an election, that's a pretty big responsibility. And Yuu's not like a big outgoing person. She's pretty quiet and reserved. So she seems. So yeah, it definitely would be daunting. And at first I was like, well, that's a tall order, Nanami. You have a lot of faith in her. And she's like, I don't want to be responsible for something so important, but Nanami won't give up. You know who Nanami and Yuu remind me of? And this is a Donmai series, so Chinese BL, but they're like, this feels almost like a modern AU of Heaven Official's Blessing. It does. Nanami is giving such Hua Chong vibes, and Yuu is giving such Shi Lian vibes in terms of the romance, in terms of their personalities as romantic partners. They are giving those vibes, and we're going to talk about it. But the whole time I was watching them interact, I was like, this is like Hualien. This is literally Hualien. If they were in a modern AU and they were women, this would be it. So we're going to talk about it, but there's such a comparison there that I am really, really excited about it. And we're going to talk about why I'm excited about it. So yeah, she's like, I don't understand why Nanami wouldn't just ask Saiki or Sayaka to do it. Because yeah, the top 2 ranked students are Sayaka and Toko. Numbers 1 and number 2. They're the top 2. So Sayaka is right behind Toko in the class. They're always together. Their ranking in the class hasn't changed since they came to this school. Yep. And so then the question is, they draw attention just by walking side by side. And if she wants to win an election, why wouldn't she, when she has a much better choice? And so I do like that a lot of this episode is focused on the fact of, did Nanami want Yuu to be part of the campaign because she likes her? And the answer is no. I mean, there's an angle. I'm sure it doesn't hurt that she likes Yuu, but that's not the reason why they chose her to be the one to run the campaign. And I like that strategy and angle. I like that they also tell her about that in this episode. It's not a secret. It's not like a she's all that, like, we made a bet, like one of those moments. No. But Yuu at first thinks it's because she likes her. And she's like, no, it couldn't be. And then we see Sayaka watching her walk away. I love the OP. The OP, I have a feeling I'm going to be talking about it the rest of the series, but the flowers and everything, I have a feeling we're going to be talking about all the flowers, all the different imagery, the kaleidoscope of the projector, all of it. It's so beautiful. And I like that we have like the one girl, we have like, it looks almost like candies or autumn leaves or something, and then you have like the blue under you, and then the other girl has like the white for clouds or snow. I love that. I love all the flowers. We have Sayaka looking towards Nanami and reaching for her, and she walks away, which means that Nanami is not interested in her that way. And yeah, I love like just all of this is so beautiful, and the song is really good. Although I did get, not only do I get Hualien vibes from Nanami and Yuu, but I also get Puella Magi, Madoka Magica, Homura, and Madoka vibes from both of them as well. And that's mainly the hair color too, and the pigtails. Is it influenced from it? Well, who knows? I don't know which came first. I think Madoka came first, but anyway. So then we have volleyball, as one does. You could have made anytime anime that is not sports anime features sports anime elements. I'm like, oh, this could instantly be a sports anime. Just go right ahead. Just go right ahead. And so then we have poor Sayaka, which, again, speaking of Puella Magi, Madoka Magica, Sayaka in that series and this series kind of have similar features in their personality, and we can comment about that down below, but that's so interesting to me. But she's kind of upset because Nanami chose to make you the campaign manager. And so I feel like Nanami's reasons are justifiable, because she's like, one, she's like, I want somebody to take a draft of a speech that you give them and edit it to where it sounds like something they would write, and to where it's an honest opinion of me. She's like, I know, Sayaka, that you like me. She doesn't outright say like me, but she knows that Sayaka and her are best friends. And she's like, whatever you write is going to paint me in this favorable, praiseworthy light. She's like, but it may not come across as honest or paint me as a genuine person, whether as it's just you praising me. And she's like, I don't need that. I don't need a yes man. I need somebody who's going to correct me and critique me if I'm wrong and put me in my place if I need to rethink something. And she's like, I know you won't do that because we're so in sync that you're just going to go with whatever I want, and we'll just do it that way. And then she says that she also wants you to do it because they need somebody who can draw the attention of the first years. Now, that's a really good reason and all. We haven't really established that Yuu is popular among the first years, so would they even care if she gave it versus the other ones? But that's Nanami's reason, and it's logical, so okay, we'll go with it. We'll go with it and say that it works. But she gives those reasons, and she's like, I'm sorry, I apologized. And she's like, I just think she's a good fit for the position, and it's a political decision, so I think it'll work. And Nanami's like, I'm serious about winning, so I think I wouldn't choose her if I thought it was going to hinder me winning the election. She's like, I am serious about it. And she's like, don't you think May is early to have an election? She's like, the first years don't know anything about me. We need somebody that can reach across the aisle over to them to give me time to be elected. She's like, they would have only known me like a month and a half, right? And she's like, it'll have profound appeal to whoever listens to her. And then Sayaka being the one to like fix her ponytail. And she's like, well, what are your plans after the election? She's like, well, I would like you to become an officer because she's worked really hard and she'd be good on the team. And Sayaka interprets that as being, oh, we're not just using her to win the election. You're going to keep her on, and you guys, you know, in other words, you want to have a deeper trust than her than me. And that is a bit unfair for Sayaka to say. I think if she had just said, you want to have a deeper trust in you, sure. But when she puts than me, it's like, oh, now you're comparing. And I don't think you can compare, right? It's apples and oranges. And Nanami's kind of like, look, and I love that they set up the spike right after that and score the point. And she's like, look, do you think that our trust in each other is deep enough already? Smooth. And Sayaka has nothing to say to that. Because, yeah, I like that Nanami's like, look, I trust you so much and we're best friends. What more do you want? She's like, yeah, I'm putting trust in her. Now, do I think that eventually Sayaka is going to come to you and express that she has feelings for Nanami and that they're unrequited? I definitely think that she's going to eventually. It is clear as mud. It is clear as can be, rather, that she has feelings for Nanami and that she likes Nanami. And she's a little bit jealous that Nanami's chosen you to be her campaign manager and wants to forge a relationship with her. It's her jealousy or envy is very clear. I like Sayaka as a person, though. I think she's a nice person. And you can kind of see Nanami, I feel, could be a frustrating person to know in real life because she's so sure of herself. And she's so like, this is what I want. I'm going to get what I want. And she kind of finds ways to shift the situation around when she talks to kind of spin it in her favor. She's a really good manipulator. And that's what reminded me of Hua Chong. I was like, And I feel for Sayaka because I'm not mad at her for being jealous because, you know, if you're best friends with this person, you've made this relationship and then suddenly here's this new person coming in and Nanami is giving you all these excuses without just saying, oh, I like her. Yeah, and the thing about it is, I know why Nanami's not saying that because she knows Sayaka will be like, oh, well, this is all just because you like her. And Nanami's trying to avoid that, especially before the election. Now, after the election's over, and I don't think that this series is going to just be building up to the election. I think the election's going to get over in a couple episodes, and then we're going to move on from there because she's established she wants to make her an officer. So I think that this isn't the end of it. They're going to keep it going. So it's going to be interesting to see, okay, now that the election's over, what are we going to do? What's our next step? And so it's going to be interesting to see if Nanami ever tells Sayaka, yeah, I like her like that. You know it's going to come out eventually, so it's how is Sayaka going to handle it? And that's going to be interesting to watch and see what we get as the episode keeps going. But Nanami is just smooth, and Sayaka's like, you know, if you lose this election, I'm going to be angry. And she's like, no, I'm going to become president, and you're going to become vice president. Right? Which I like that. I like that Nanami's like, look, no matter what happens, no matter whose relationship that I'm in, you and I are going to always be friends. And we're always going to be super close. So don't feel jealous because I'm sharing my time with not only you, you still are really important to me and you matter. And I think that Sayaka's like, okay, all right, I'll take that. Sure. So then they're changing classrooms and look who shows up but Sayaka. And she has the script that for the campaign speech. And it was nice of her to write out a rough draft. I like that she says, okay, it's just a reference. I mean, I did craft the whole thing. It will probably win awards, but if you don't want to use it, I mean, fine. Say whatever you want. It's fine. She's like, do whatever you want. It's okay. I'm like, that's so funny to me that she's just like, yeah, sure, whatever, I guess. Just, it's a prize-winning speech. No big deal. Just change however you like. You know, I do appreciate that because when you take on a job, it's nice to have a template. It's nice to have a reference point, to have something to work off of. I do really well with that. If somebody gives me something to work off of, I can tailor it to be how I want it. And that's really helpful to have. And she's like, well, I don't know if I'll be able to do a good job. She's like, you would do better. And I like that Sayaka's like, yeah. She's like, I would. She's like, I would do better. But, you know, she's like, that's most likely true. But then she says, you know, you have a perspective that we don't. And that's important. And Toko, aka Nanami, thinks that that's an important thing to have. And so she's like, well, but I don't know. And then she looks over to Nanami. And Nanami is looking at her like, please do this. Like, she just has that blush on her face. Like, she really wants her to do it. And Yu's like, oh, fine. Can't turn her down. She's like, I'll do what I can. And there we go. So then she's like, we're going to be partners and fight together in the election. The first person perspective works a lot better in this episode because it's not so much, so it's not as disorienting. And so they are walking back from school, talking about working together. And the train scene. She's like, I didn't know you could be so pushy. And Nanami's like, well, I just know what I want. And I go after whatever I want. And she's like, nothing. She's like, what is it? And that's when she says, you know, the other day when you said you're falling in love with me, does that have anything to do with what you're asking? And I like that we get a little bit of perspective about this because Nanami kind of admits that she's like, whenever I feel strongly about something, I go after it. But Nanami's like, I've never really felt this way about anybody before. So I just kind of like blurted out what I thought, and I kind of just reached out for that person, and I wasn't really thinking about it. So sorry about that. You know, and she's very open and honest about it. She's like, I didn't mean to make you worry. She doesn't try to play it off as anything as anything like unimportant. She's just like, yeah, sorry about that. I made you worry. And here's the thing. Yu's like, well, I wouldn't say worry. Yu is maybe coming to terms with herself and her feelings and, you know, her attraction. And she's trying to be, I like that Yu is overall in the episode. There's a moment here coming up where I was like, ooh, but overall, she is, I think, being open-minded, but she's trying to find awareness of how open-minded she's being. Because she's like, well, I wouldn't say worry. And I'm like, right, it didn't bother you. She's like, I just blurted out something and I spoke before thinking. And Nanami's like, I should have thought about that, but it just happened. And then Yu says, well, I don't. And I love the symbolism. Anytime you come up on them train tracks in anime, I was thinking of Given. I was thinking of Free. I was like, anytime you come up on them train tracks, stuff's about to go down. And what a scene. But then Yu says, I know you didn't mean it in a weird way. And the moment those red lights started flashing, I was like, ooh. I was like, oh no. I was like, wait, girl, don't say too much. Don't say something you're going to regret. And she's like, well, we're both girls anyway. So, well, even if we weren't both girls, I'm not sure I could feel that way about anyone. So in that moment, she says, even if we weren't both girls. Because at first, when she starts saying, well, we're both girls, and I was like, oh, is it going to go that route where the series is like, you know, anytime you have BL or GL, it's like, oh, we're the same sex. Society won't let us. I thought it was going to go that route, and I was like, but we've seen that happen before. But then she backtracks. She's like, well, even if we weren't both girls. So that doesn't matter to her. She backtracks and says, oh, never mind, that doesn't matter. I'm not sure I could feel that way about anybody. So hinting that she has this asexuality to her, that she's like, I don't know if I feel that way. Or she's aromantic. She's like, I don't know if it's aromantic because I'm not aromantic myself. So I can't really speak to it, but she clearly wants romance. If you're aromantic, you don't really want romance. She wants it, but she just doesn't feel that attraction. And she's like, I don't know if I could feel that way about anybody. And when she bumps into her and Nanami's waiting for that train to go, and when that train hits, this scene, I was like, oh my God. At first, is it weird for a hot second? I thought somebody was going to get hit by the train. I've watched too many hardcore serious anime on this channel. It's tainted my experience. I was like, somebody's going to get hit by a train. Nanami, you need to get off them tracks. I was really worried somebody was going to get hit by a train for a hot second. I was like, is this about to become a horror anime? But no. That train goes by and she seizes the moment to do it while nobody can watch. And her hair blowing in the breeze, very Homura. And then she kisses her. And for a split second, I was like, ooh, because I'm not the biggest person on like non-consent. And I was like, uh-oh. And then I was like, what are we going to do about this? But she gives her the peck. It goes in slow motion. And then she explains. And she's like, my love is a love where I want to do something like this. And in that moment, she like gives her a peck and she's like, and it's a statement because Nanami, her character is a doer, not necessarily a sayer. She very much like just impulsively does it. And then she's like, this is what I'm doing. And in that moment, she's like, at first I thought she was saying, you know, well, I do like girls and this is what I want. And just so you're aware, and I don't think it's a bad thing. And I think it's fine. And I think that's part of it. But she's like, I want to love someone where I can kiss them like this. That's what I want. And she's just blushing and Yu's like, oh, she's like, my heart races when I'm with you. And then the train goes by. And she's like, I've never had this feeling with anyone before. And yeah, and then the train tracks lit up. And Nanami's like, that's just it. That's how I feel. She's like, I've never felt this way around anyone, but I feel it around you. And I'm being honest with you and expressing my feelings. The height difference, though. The height difference gets me. It's so perfect. And then they just turn around and keep walking. But she's just so honest. She's like, I'm being real with you. She's like, I like Nanami being direct. Like, I like that it was just a peck on the lips. And she's like, this is what I want. She's like, I'm not beating around the bush. I'm not going to be like leading you on. This is how I feel. And I'm being as direct and blunt as I can. And then her like just touching her lips like, what do I do? And Yu's like, that's what I want to ask. And she's like, what do I do? She's like, I like you a lot and I want to be with you in a physical relationship, but I know you don't like me. So what do I do about that? Oh, man. Oh, it's hard, right? So then after heating up, we have application for first love. And we have them all get together for their meeting. There's several of them. There's like a dozen of them. And I like that Yu's like, this was definitely a lie that it was a first draft. She's like, girl has tailored this to the gods. We're that, like, no way. But she's like, fine, I think it'll... And then I like Maki's character. Maki is a sweetheart. I really like him. I'm curious to know, I hope he stays just like a friend with you. I feel like we already have a love triangle setting up between Nanami and Sayaka and Yuu. I don't think Maki needs to get thrown in there as a love interest. And I do appreciate when shows do give like platonic same-sex couples or platonic couples regardless of their sexuality. I do like platonic couples in shows. As much as I like shipping and multi-shipping, I do like some platonic pairs that are just friends. They're just buddies. It's great. It's fine. I know a lot of shows present to where people of opposite sexes can't just be friends. I argue they can, and most of the time they are, and I hope Maki is like one of those because he seems like a sweetheart. So then they all gather everybody together. I like that they all get onto Nanami for being fashionably late, and I'm like, there's something wrong with her being late. Girl had to get ready and show up. But I did wonder if Nanami was late because she was afraid to show up after what happened at the train stop, if she thought that you wouldn't want to be there and that it was going to be a problem. I wondered if maybe that's why she was late, was because she was afraid she'd show up and you wouldn't be there. But she does, or maybe she was trying to curb any awkward moments, show up after everybody arrives and are waiting on her, and then she arrives and she's like, oh, hey, we just got to get straight into it, huh? No time for chit-chatting before, right? I've done that before. Not to people I've had crushes on, but I have shown up at events where I know there's going to be someone there that I don't want to talk to. And if to ease out small talk, you just show up right as things are starting, and then you don't have any time to be like confronted by them. And then you just show up, you're there, and there's no time, and then you just get to the meeting and it's fine. I've done that before. It's very effective. But they do this intro meeting, and I love the juxtaposition of Nanami's smile, like everything's fine, and you frowning like everything is not fine because we need to talk about this. I love that juxtaposition. And Yuu is definitely someone that wears her heart on her sleeve, and Nanami is someone that, even though she's impulsive, she's also good at hiding her feelings. So they're both mismatched in the best way. Yuu wears her heart on her sleeve, but she's not. It's so interesting, the comparison between the two. You have Yuu, who wears her heart on her sleeve, and Nanami, who can be more private with her emotions. But whenever they are deciding to do something, Nanami is very impulsive and just does it, and Yuu contemplates. So they're both very opposite in different ways. So then they get done. They have the presidential election schedule, the 47th annual, and it looks like there are dates for April 24th, 25th, May 2nd, May 7th, the 6th, my birthday on the 8th, and then they have like an agenda of what all they're doing. And so there's like 4, 8, 12, there's like 15 of them there, which is cool. Like a big squad to get stuff done. And then Maki and them leave. And then that's when Nanami's like, I want to talk to you. Let's talk about this. And Sayaka's like, what are we doing? So Nanami's like, okay. And I like that Nanami is very open and direct about apologizing and being like, sorry about that. And Yu's like, I wasn't bothered by it. And to me, that in itself is Nanami's like, well, but that was, she's like, I literally kissed you. You're not bothered by it. What does that mean? Like, you normally you don't just brush something like that off being like, oh, it was fine. No big deal. She's like, that was a pretty serious thing. And you kind of doesn't have a response at first. She kind of leaves her quiet. And then it's like she's thinking about what to say. And that silence is so good there because it's like Nanami saying, well, are you okay with this? Is, you were saying that, that wasn't natural, but are you okay with it? What do you think about this? Do you not want to talk about it? It's okay. That whole silence, it's such a real silence because, like, what do you say in that moment? What can you say? So I love that moment between them. And then she just says, really, I'm sorry. She's like, but that's not the reason I wanted you to be my manager. She's like, I want to make sure you know this is not a conflict of interest. I really do believe in your skills. I just happen to like you at the same time, too. Yeep. And she's kind of like, really? That really isn't the reason. And she's like, yeah. So will you still, can I ask you as a friend who's campaigning with me? And Yu's like, okay. I'll do it. And she's like, really? And she's like, I did say I don't want to let Sayaka down. I did say she's depending on me, so I need to do it. And then, you see the one friend walking back with the basketball guy. And she's like, and okay, she's walking back with the basketball guy, but she also has like a big blush on her face. Like she's kind of like blushing around him. Every time everybody has a blush on their face, poor Yu is like, I don't know what that means. She's like, I don't know. And she's like, all right, I'll do it. And of course, Nanami is like, yay. And she gets the blushy face too. She's like, it honestly didn't bother me to have it suddenly stolen by a girl like that. So she talks about her first kiss, that she thought it would bother her to have a woman kiss her and take that first kiss, but it's something I should hate, but I didn't. And she's like, but if I don't hate it, then can't I feel more excited about it? And to that, because she's like, well, if I don't hate it, should I like it? And shouldn't I feel something about it? Because there's like that moment, that kiss, she's like, it's my first kiss. And then it gets black and white. And she's like, but I didn't feel a thing. And at that moment, I was like, well, and there's a whole lot of things I want to talk about later on with this scene. Like when the train tracks, she's like, since then, nothing else remarkable happened between us. I mean, I honestly think first kisses, and y'all can probably contest to this yourselves down below in the comments, first kisses are overrated. They really are. I've kissed people before, but it is, to me, they're overrated. Like your first kiss is always either clumsy or impromptu or sloppy, or you miss their face and you get their nose, or your glasses clink, or something happens where it's awkward. Like first kisses on any date I've ever been on have just been awkward. They're not exactly, or if you're like in a car and you like lean over to give somebody a kiss, it never works out the way you want them to. And they're always awkward. And honestly, I think that we get so many romanticized versions of that first kiss, but oftentimes they're still like exploring things and you're figuring yourself out and you're figuring out how you feel around that other person. And sure, I'm not saying that there can't be sparks, that there can't be magic, that you can't like have that first kiss and it's like everything you've ever dreamed of. But a lot of the times it's like they don't have that magic spark. And you have Yu, who's read all these shoujo manga and have these expectations of what she thinks it's going to be like. And then it doesn't happen. And she's like, I didn't feel anything. And I'm like, well, it was just a moment. Maybe you should keep practicing. But yeah, I understand what she means when she's like, well, I didn't really feel anything. It's a very relatable feeling. And so she's like, well, then we just went on our way. And I like that we do the election fundraising, like Maki's helping too. And I like that they go by the baseball team, and the one baseball guy is like looking as he's running at her. That's really funny. Anytime I see athletics in a non-sports anime, I want to see like what their version of their sports anime are. So she gets these student council club posters made, which are super cute. And of course, Sayaka has perfect calligraphy. Of course she does. Why wouldn't she have perfect calligraphy? And so they talk about the posters needing a stamp to be put up. And our bulletin boards at the school that I work with, they have that too. You have to have like a little stamp designating that it's actually approved material to go on the bulletin boards. Otherwise, that way people can't just stick random stuff all over there and take up space. It has to be approved. So Yuu goes and gets the committee teacher to sign off on it. And now the teacher, they say, as she's leaving, they're like, so Nanami is a candidate for student counselor. Time sure does fly. She must be happy about that too. And I'm curious what that means, if they're going to go back to that and touch base on it. That would be interesting. So anyway, they do the interview with Yuu, talking about the first years getting involved in the election. She gives her opinions of Nanami. And I like the idea that they're interviewing each candidate to try to get impressions. And interviews are nerve-wracking. They really are. I have students that come in and interview me as an instructor for like their other classes to get extra credit. And interviews are always so weird, especially if they're being recorded or written down, because you're on the spot and sometimes you might get a question that you don't exactly know how to phrase. So when you have to just say it right there and then, it can be nerve-wracking and you may not know exactly what to say. So it's interesting. Very interesting. But yeah. So Nanami, Yuu says, well, it doesn't seem like you're ever nervous. And she's like, well, that's not true at all. Everybody's serious and our school's very competitive. They go all out. So she's like, everybody's going to be giving it their all. There's not any just random candidates. Everybody's going to be really competitive. So it's going to be a close race probably. And Yuu's like, but you're still confident. And she's like, well, I don't know. And so Yuu comments on how she seems so confident in everything that she does. And she's like, well, that weirdness was just a mistake. Nanami and I must be the same. Those special feelings and heart flutters are foreign to us. But then when they gather for the photo and they take it, Yuu like reaches down and grabs her hand. And in that moment, she blushes. When she grabs her hand and holds on to it and Yuu's watching her reaction, she gets very blushy around it. And that's when Yuu's like, oh, we're not the same. And it kind of sucks, right? She's like, it's never made my heart flutter. She's like, I don't understand these special feelings. And Yuu, for a second, thought she'd found somebody like her with Nanami that she could relate to. But Nanami gets that special flutter around Yuu. And you would think, and Yuu gets blushy in that moment as well. And she's like, it's unfair. She's like, I thought Nanami was the same as me. But she made that face even though I grabbed her hand. She knows what that special feeling of love feels like. And she's like, I want to get there too. But I can't. And that's so hard. It's so hard because I feel like Yuu wants to have those feelings, but they're just not there. And I can relate. It's hard. It's hard when people talk about it. Like I have friends that was always my thing. I think looking back, I think that was like one of the first signs is that anytime we'd play that game where it was screw, marry, or kill, and everybody would go on and on about like the celebrities or whatever that they'd like to marry or have sex with, none of those ever came to mind. I was like, yeah, they're attractive. But there was just never like I could never think of anybody for those games because my mind would just go blank and I'd be like, I don't really feel that way about that special feeling. And so I can understand where Yuu's coming from, where it's like, I just don't feel that. And like, there's just nothing there. And it's like, you expect something to be there, right? And then she has her Shinji moment from Neon Genesis where we have, I'm assuming this is Nanami, when she's like, thanks for your hard work too, senpai. And she's like, I want to take some time to think about the draft for the speech. Is it okay on the way home from school? Is on the way home from school okay? Mm-hmm. And she's like, got it. And send. And then she dumps the phone back. She's like, I get it. I had selfish expectations, and I'm just selfishly disappointed. And that's so hard. And I hate that she feels like she's being selfish, because I don't think there's anything wrong in wanting to feel that same feeling of love. And she, has been trying to mull over, why am I not reacting to her the same way she's reacting to me? Like, why can't that be? I should feel that way. And it's not happening. And she's like, I'm experiencing, and she's like, I'm still feeling that same sense of just not feeling it. And so I hate that she's disappointed, because I'm like, girl, maybe, you just gotta, maybe you're demisexual. Maybe you just gotta warm up to her. And she's like, we're different. The specialness won't come to me. Maybe you're just demisexual and you got to know her for a long time and then it builds up. Maybe that's the case. Maybe. So I like that, you decide she's going to just tell her that she can't fall in love with her. That she's like, I just can't fall in love with you. It's not working. I like that we go to this cafe called Echo. So they show her the draft. And she's like, I wrote notes in my own way for now. And then as they're about to get their stuff, they get the cafe a latte. I don't like that, honestly. I like a latte or coffee, but no judgment with her. And then the other girl gets tea. Nanami gets some tea. So I like that they have two different cups. They're on two different wavelengths. One has the cafe a latte, and then the other one has the cup of coffee. Like, they're on two different, they're not in the same cup, so just some symbolism there. And she's like, and that's when Nanami's like, look, I know what you're going to tell me. She's like, I'm not going to ask you to go out with me. She's like, I'm not going to do that. And I know you can't think of someone as special. And you also won't fall in love with me. She's like, that's okay. And Yu's like, you beat me to my own game. But then she tells her, she's like, but as like the light shines through and it gets all, dramatic. But she's like, let me love you. And Yu's like, what? She's like, well, that's weird, though. She's like, to think that even though you love someone, you don't want them to love you back. She's like, I don't know how to feel about that. She's like, what do I say? She's like, you want to love me, but it's going to make me look bad if I tell you that I don't want to love you back. She's like, isn't that weird to you, knowing that I'm not going to love you back? Isn't that odd? And Nanami puts the cup down. She's like, you're right. She's like, but maybe it's because I didn't think I could do something like fall in love with someone. Nanami's like, you're the first person I've had feelings around. She's like, I'll respect your boundaries. I'm not going to like get in your face or make you date me or do anything like that. She's like, just let me show affection to you. As long as it doesn't cross any lines or cross any boundaries. She's like, this is the first time I felt this way about somebody. And she's like, right now I feel very fulfilled. I like that Nanami's like, I'm going to be selfish. You talked about being selfish. Now I'm going to be selfish. She's like, I feel satisfied and fulfilled having somebody to care for. And she's like, I don't want to stop caring about you, even if I know I'm not going to get anything back. Which is so interesting to me, because you have Sayaka, who in this same episode was like, well, but I like you. And Sayaka almost is afraid she's not going to ever get anything back. And she wants to express that love. And maybe Nanami is drawing from that and saying to herself, it's funny that they both have the same kind of one-sided feelings right now. And she's like, I don't want to give up on this feeling, which is kind of how Sayaka feels, which is so interesting. And she's like, should I stop? And I like that Nanami says, should I stop? Like, I like that it's not, I'm going to keep loving you and you have no choice. And I'm just going to do it whether you like it or not. She says, should I stop? She asks for some consent. She's like, can I love you and keep on being devoted to you, or do you want me to stop doing it? And she sees the body language that, like, Nanami's waiting. Like, Nanami's nervous that she's going to say stop, because you can see it in her body language and her tensing up. And Yuu is like, if you're okay with that, then I don't mind. And I'm like, Ha! I'm like, you girl, you just sealed yourself in. And she's like, oh, thank you. And she just sparkles, like just her eyes sparkling as much as they can. And I'm like, you chose this, girl. You made this choice. And she's like, I wonder why I told her that I don't mind. This girl is really unfair. Which is just how Sayaka feels, right? Just how Sayaka feels. I'm curious if Sayaka finds out about all this, if she's going to go to you and be like, don't break her heart, you know, one of those, which that does put an unjust amount of pressure on you. But in the same breath, you did tell her it was okay. So there is a part of me that feels like you is trying to understand her feelings, but she maybe doesn't understand where they're coming from or how they're developing. And I feel like with you, it is going to hit her like a freight train. It's going to hit her like that train on the tracks. It's just going to all come at once and be like, boom, she likes her. But maybe it won't. And I'm all for if this series examines it from the perspective of someone on the asexual train and someone that is, you know, that loves women, that's homosexual, that loves women on this side. I'm very, very interested in seeing how those dynamics could play out, right? Because in all honesty, I've read online where people have talked about, you know, if you are on the ace spectrum, you don't always get with somebody who's ace. Sometimes people have partners that are, you know, that are hetero or homosexual too. And you have to find ways to like navigate those boundaries and work through those relationships. So I would be really curious if that ends up happening, but maybe you will develop her relationship with Nanami and realize her feelings. I don't know. That all remains to be seen, doesn't it? So in any case, I'm really excited to see what happens on episode 3, how this election campaign goes. They've established that we don't know how it's going to end. It may go well, it may not. We'll just have to wait and see. But in any case, I'm super excited, and I hope you all are as well. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back again real soon with more of Bloom Into You. Bye.